Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. After, I guess, a hiatus, if we want to call it that, of 2 weeks. We had some scheduling conflicts the last couple weeks, so we were unable to provide you with your weekly content and episodes of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. So we're back after 14 days. So hopefully you missed us. Don't forget, again, that we're on YouTube now. Each podcast episode that we publish also publishes to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-last-round-boxing-podcast, or if you just search in the YouTube search bar, the Last Round Podcast or the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Our logo, our cartoon logo of Mike and I should pop up. And if you click it, all of our catalog of episodes should be published on there, with each new weekly one also popping up on there. So if you don't like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of that, and you want to listen to the audio feed on YouTube, maybe it's a lot easier for you, or you have YouTube Premium, so there's no ads for you there. Check us out. We are now on YouTube. So if you're going to listen to us on there, subscribe on there. Just hit that subscribe button. It's easy and it's free. Jumping straight back into it, fight reviews. So we're going to touch on a couple fights that we missed just very quickly. Last week, Christian Mbilli. Mbilli? Is that how you say it? How do you say his name? Mbilli? I feel like I'm saying it wrong. I always am. Gets a decision over Dervenchenko in Canada. Canada getting one of those fights. This was a top rank on ESPN card. Christian Mbilli, he has a long-term deal. I don't want to say long-term, but he has a multi-fight deal with Top Rank. You know, I was kind of surprised that Top Rank signed him, or at least brought him into the roster. Is that surprise feeling misplaced, or are you surprised that Top Rank signed this guy?
I think if you look at his resume so far, he looks good, with the knockouts, big, strong, athletic-looking guy. He kind of like fits the bill, but he hasn't really been in with anyone. But I rated this performance against somebody as experienced as, Dervenchenko, who's, if you look at his resume of fighters, it's a who's who, really, isn't it, of people he's fought. He's never shied away from anybody. He got injured early in this. Obviously, he was pretty much fighting with one hand from the 5th round after injuring his left bicep. And then Mbilli just managed to really just win the fight with relative ease. I think it was like 100 to 90, 99, 91, and 98, 92. Not an impressive victory in terms of what it looked like. Quite a lot of fouls and stuff like that. But, a win over Dervenchenko, it's a good win on the ledger, Only the best of the best really have beaten Dervenchenko during his career when he was in his prime.
Yeah, Dervenchenko's definitely been in some wars. Those Eastern European guys, excuse me. But Dervenchenko, is he Russian or is he from the Ukraine? I could be wrong on both. I could be wrong on both of them.
But I think he's Russian. Honestly can't remember.
Somewhere over there. Yeah. Right? I mean, obviously, if we are incorrect, we apologize. But you're right. Dervenchenko's been in some wars. He's been in there with Triple G. He's been in there with, I believe he was in there with Danny Jacobs. He was in there with
Munguia, Charlo, Triple G, Daniel Jacobs, Carlos Adames, Munguia. Yeah,
he's fought the who's who of the last, maybe 6 or 7 years since
about 2018 when he fought Jacobs. They've all been pretty decent names.
No, yeah, and you got to look at it too in terms of these. If you compare him to somebody like Dimitri Bivol, who, he's gotten some big fights. Obviously, Canelo fight was his biggest fight, but he's always been looked at as high risk, low reward, even though he's got a world title. A lot of these guys from that area are all looked like that. Maybe Lomachenko and Usyk are the ones that kind of like have been, had their earning potential has exceeded the rest, but the rest of them from that general area of the world have always had tough time, have always experienced difficult times or chances to land that big fight or those big money fights. Dervenchenko's got, I don't think he's really had that problem. And he's like you mentioned, and like we mentioned, Dervenchenko's he's a dangerous guy. In all these fights, he's always proved that, I don't think anybody would say that he doesn't belong. How would you rate him in terms of, would you say that he's, even though he hasn't had these wins, these like big wins over like the big name fighters, would you categorize him just below the level of elite?
Yeah. He just
like,
always,
like on the cusp?
Yeah, one of those guys that's like always just that one fight away, like doesn't seem to be able to pull it. Like Jacobs, Golovkin, and Charlo were probably like his 3 fights where I thought, he has a chance here. Just because he was super skilled. And I to be honest with you, I thought Charlo, that Charlo performance was the one that made me think, okay, Charlo's probably legit. Because Dervenchenko at that time, 4 years ago, was probably in his prime, super talented, super skilled. I mean, they call him the technician for a reason, right? So it kind of goes to show you, that performance was the one that was a breakout performance for me in terms of how good Charlo was.
Who do you think is, if you had to rate the top 3 fighters of the last, 6-7 years from the Eastern European, that general geographical area of the world? You got the Bivols, the Lomachenkos, Dervenchenko. Obviously over in the Coachella Valley over here, who's the trainer out there?
Joel Diaz.
Joel Diaz. He gets a lot of those guys. They fly over from across the world and they come over here to the Coachella Valley, and a lot of them go right there with Joel Diaz. So, who would you say are the top 3 of the last 6 or 7 years?
Lomachenko, Usyk.
Yeah, I think they're easy first 2, right?
Yeah.
Who's number 3?
We allowed Triple G.
6, 7. Yeah. Well,
I don't know. If it's 6 or 7 years,
how many times has he fought in the last, let's just say, 5 years?
I should be able to pull him up because he's on here. The last 5 years.
The Canelo fight, the last Canelo fight was when?
September 2022. In the last 5 years, he's only fought Steve Rolls, Dervenchenko, Murata, and then Canelo.
Do you think Triple G's earned more money than Usyk?
That heavyweight money, though, might have taken him above before that.
No, right. But Triple G was earning pretty well. It's been, he had 3 Canelo fights.
Because he's had, what, two Joshua.
Jacobs, too. He fought Jacobs. That was a nice payday.
Because Usyk's fought Joshua twice. I bet those paydays were huge.
Tyson Fury
rematch. And then potentially a trilogy, with AJ they keep talking about. So I think maybe Usyk now because he's on that heavyweight money.
Do you think the Saudi money? How much more do you think the Saudi money had an effect on that, though?
I think a little bit because I know that Turki Al-Sheikh said in an interview that the reported figure for Francis Ngannou was nowhere near, like it was massively overinflated. So I'm sure they're getting paid better, but probably not double or treble what people have been quoting, because I'm sure he has some financial sense, right? Look at the amount of money he has.
I mean, yeah, you would think, but I still think they're getting they're paying for they're trying to increase the tourism aspect of their country.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are, right? I mean, like, I don't think anybody disputes that, and they're trying to do it with sports. So, I'm sure sometimes, you got to overpay, especially in boxing, with all the exuberant payments that have been around and limited TV networks and streaming partners who want to get involved in the sport because of the financial background behind the scenes. But so yeah, you think Usyk has eclipsed Triple G in terms of career earnings at this point now?
Yeah, I think the heavyweight money probably pushed him over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big bucks he earned in the heavyweight division.
Do you think, let me ask you this. I feel like this is an easy answer. Do you think Usyk or Triple G has a bigger profile overall in the United States?
In the United States. Probably Triple G.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because if you think about his big fights that at heavyweight were against Brits.
Right.
And I don't know if they transcend over here like maybe we think they do.
And they were on over there in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking. And Triple G fought in prime time on HBO over here on DAZN. He had the 3 Canelo fights.
Right.
So I think easily Triple G is a lot more known to the casual fan in the United States than Usyk is. Yeah. I mean, I don't think. I think that's just the nature of how the heavyweight division has been the last several years. Is that the heavyweight division, especially when Wilder started losing, is over there in the UK, Eastern Europe and all that. Like, they've had the overall better heavyweight talent, right? Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, in recent times, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, these Eastern European cats, I'm telling you, Dervenchenko, what is he now? Is he like maybe late 30s, 38 or something? 39?
Dervenchenko, I'll give you a sec. I have his box.
I mean, because you look at these guys and the wars that they've been in, like he has,
38.
38? Okay. So, 2018, 6 years ago, he was a 32. And I'm sure in 2018 up until now, he's really done the bulk of his career in terms of earning potential and, higher profile fights. Excuse me. What a word salad that was. But yeah, like I mentioned, Christian Mbilli decisions, Dervenchenko in Canada from a Top Rank on ESPN show. And then also one that we kind of missed over the last 2 weeks, Vergil Ortiz Jr. gets the hard-fought split decision over Sergey Bohachuk. Bohachuk obviously fights under 360 Promotions and Tom Loeffler. This was from the Mandalay Bay and Casino in Las Vegas, a Golden Boy promotion show on DAZN. What did you think about this fight? Some people, obviously it was a close fight. They both had Vergil Ortiz did go down twice, but if you watch the actual knockdowns, they were a knockdown's a knockdown, right? You get the point, but Ortiz did go down twice, but they were. Would you consider him a flash knockdown, or how would you consider him?
Yeah, I would have said. They were knockdowns, but more of a flash knockdown, like off balance,
right?
One where he kind of swung and super wide, and then kind of got clipped and then kind of went down like that. But yeah, definitely wasn't one of the best performances from Vergil Ortiz. One, I think he's probably going to, take and run away, where I think we probably would have liked to have seen the rematch, because Sergey Bohachuk, I don't think people would have complained, especially with the 2 knockdowns, if he'd have managed to, if it was 114, 112 the other way.
Right.
Because it was just that close of a fight, and you could see the reaction from Vergil Ortiz and his corner when he was announced as the winner. You could see the relief.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was a tough fight, right? And I don't see Ortiz is obviously going to try to, wiggle his way into a world title fight at 154. Golden Boy, I think, is going to try that. I mean, Vergil Ortiz is like, his career. I mean, I don't want to call it unlucky. He just has some tough breaks, mostly because of the illnesses that he's dealt with over the last couple of years. Because you would think if he didn't have to deal with the setbacks that he's had the last couple of years, he would probably already have had a world championship, I mean, but what was it? Was it 3 fights where he didn't, like, they got rescheduled or they got canceled because of the illness that he had?
Yeah, I think it was definitely 3 fights because he was off from August 2022, and then due to the illness, he didn't return until January 2024. So he was off the entirety of 2023.
Yeah. So, obviously that's a big that was a big blow to his career. Obviously he's still young enough. I think he's in his mid-20s. But so he's still got a ton of time left. It's, he's lucky he wasn't in his 30s or 33, 34, 35 or, I mean, by then he probably already would have made some decent money and had some championships around his waist. But yeah, I think Vergil, I think they've, Golden Boy mentioned that they wanted Terence Crawford, try to make that fight. Obviously, Crawford is going to try to see if he can get the Canelo fight. I'm sure he's going to try to be in attendance in Vegas for the Berlanga fight in September. But if Crawford doesn't get a fight with Canelo, is Vergil Ortiz the next best option? Financially, competitively?
That's what I'm trying to think. In terms of a fight fan, we'd love to see that, I think, because you've got Ortiz, we know is going to stand and fight, and 22 wins, 21 knockouts. So
yeah, and Crawford just won his first title at 154 in LA.
He looked good, technique wise and stuff like that. It was a bit of a technical fight, more than anything. Trying to get each other to kind of like bite so they can counter. I mean, it's definitely in terms of a fight fan, we'd love that, but I don't know if it's got the big prestige of like a Canelo fight, but not.
Well, I don't think anybody else besides Canelo has the prestige of a Canelo fight. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's why I said, is Vergil Ortiz the next best option in terms of financial payout for Crawford? But you also got to think about Sebastian Fundora, who fights under PBC. And he has the world title. Has a world title at 154, 6'5", 6'6", 154 pounds. I mean, I think Vergil Ortiz is a lot more known than Fundora, but when people Fundora, to me, I feel like Fundora, because of his size and the weight that he fights at, and because Crawford's kind of already essentially crossed over into like mainstream, like, media in a way, or kind of obviously aligning himself with the rapper Eminem and all that. I feel like in terms of social chatter and sharing and maybe, eyeballs, I feel like there'd be a lot of non-boxing accounts that would share pictures or video of Terence Crawford and Sebastian Fundora standing next to each other or facing off because Fundora just towers over everybody. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a chance that gets shared and people are like, oh my God, this guy's huge. Like, he's going to fight Terence Crawford, and people are going to be like, I'm kind of interested in this because this guy's a monster. How's he going to beat this guy? Like, in terms of visibility of like, that edges to Fundora, but I think at this point, disregarding that, Ortiz is a little bit more known in the United States than Sebastian Fundora is. So if Canelo's off the table, who's second in line? Who should Crawford consider to be second in line?
I think maybe Fundora, just so he can wrap up the belts at 154. Like if he's looking at doing 3-time undisputed, then Fundora already has the WBC, the WBO. Terence Crawford has the WBO interim. So, why not just... and he also has the WBA. So why not try to, pick up a couple of more of those trinkets, and then you're pretty much 3/4 of the way there for the 3-time undisputed, which would be record breaking.
No, right, yeah.
In the men's division,
right, yeah. I think Golden Boy is really going to have to try. Do you think if you were Crawford, would you fight Fundora? Because, like you said, to try to unify the titles. Let's just say he's going to get paid well. He's already crossed that threshold. But do you think somebody like Crawford would take less pay? Let's just say his offer to fight Fundora is less, still significant, but less. And let's just say Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya, to try to land the Crawford fight for Ortiz, offer more to Crawford in terms of financial compensation. Do you think Crawford would take the Vergil Ortiz fight because it's more money, or do you think he's at the point where, I'll take a little bit lesser purse because I can get his title, Fundora's, to try to go undisputed quicker?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because going off what you said before, he seemed to always kind of be about money, but now that he's got those paydays, maybe legacy does mean a little bit more to him. Maybe having the chance at 3-time undisputed, he would take a little bit less, because on the way up, I'm sure it's all about money. But when you've got the money already, then you can kind of take a little bit of a different path here and there to, establish yourself in the record books and, define your legacy so you're spoken about when you're retired.
Right. There's also Spence, too. Spence is at 154 now. You never know. I mean, I don't think Spence is going to want to fight Crawford for a while, but
he'll come back, do the usual PBC thing, like have one more fight so he can get paid again, and he's...
No, yeah. And I could see Al Heyman and PBC trying to, hey, Spence, just kind of, let's try to go for it again, man. You guys will make some good money again. So I could see it. Moving on to fight previews this upcoming Saturday, the 31st of August, from the Dignity Health Sports Park, formerly the Home Depot Center, formerly the StubHub Center, all these names. But to boxing fans, it's known as the War Grounds in Carson, California, in the county of Los Angeles on DAZN. Diego Pacheco, 21-0. This is a matchroom boxing event, by the way. 21-0 goes up against Maciej. How do you say his name? Suleki, obviously. How do you say his first name? I feel like it's a lot easier than I'm saying it.
I just go by Suleki. That's good.
Suleki, yeah. 32-2. This is for the WBC USA. Is that new? What the hell is that? And the WBO International Super Middleweight Championship. Wait a minute. WBC USA? I don't think I've ever seen that since we've started this show.
Right.
Is that new?
I'm sure it's just there, but obviously I'm guessing BoxRec don't always list it, but they listed it this time.
WBC USA.
Yeah.
I have never seen that.
It's Mauricio getting that 3%.
WBC USA Championship. Man, you got to give it to them, man. You got to give it to them. Pacheco, obviously, he fights at what, 135? Is that the weight class?
Pacheco?
What does he fight at?
Super middle?
Ah, geez, that was way off. I don't know why I'm thinking, is there another Diego something at 135? Oh, maybe I'm wrong. It's been 2 weeks trying to shake off the cobwebs here. Pacheco, 21-0. Matchroom signed in with these high hopes. They've been having a lot of his fights here in Southern California, obviously, big Latin community. He's fought, I think, once or twice at the new YouTube theater in Inglewood, California, where the American football stadium is at. And now the new Los Angeles Clippers NBA team has a new arena that just opened up there. He's at super middle, 168. So let me ask you this. Berlanga landed the Canelo sweepstakes. He's fighting Canelo in a couple weeks, mid-September in Las Vegas. Pacheco and Berlanga have kind of danced around each other for the last couple years, and Berlanga's now with Matchroom. Pacheco's there too. With Berlanga getting this fight, and like we talked about in the past, with Canelo having limited options because he's been in the game so long and he's literally fought everybody. I mean, Benavidez is obviously still there. Excluding Benavidez, what's the percentage chance that in the next a year from next month, because Canelo fights May, September 2025, is Diego Pacheco one of those opponents for Canelo?
He kind of has to be, right? Because there's not many people left after Berlanga. You'd hope so. You know, Pacheco, Benavidez, and then you're kind of running out of opponents. A Bivol rematch, because Canelo's been there and fought everybody, and there's no one really kind of like tearing it up on the scene, you know, at super middle or light heavy, which you'd be going, okay, like this guy definitely needs to be in there with Canelo. Because I know Pacheco's been calling for the Berlanga fight for a long time, but we all knew that, you know, Berlanga had that Puerto Rican, Mexican kind of like salesmanship. So we knew that obviously they were going to protect Berlanga so they could get him in there to sell tickets for this upcoming fight next month.
Right.
But, you know, I think, you know, Pacheco against Berlanga would be a great fight. I just don't think Berlanga would give him the chance.
Okay, let me ask you this. Does Munguia and Pacheco fight? Actually, I forget Munguia's with Top Rank in ESPN now, so that's a little bit difficult. Oh, man. That kind of throws a wrench into it. But a Pacheco-Munguia fight would be fun.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I don't think Munguia would duck it. I just don't know whether they'd work together, like you said.
Yeah. But, you know, with Pacheco being on the zone, with Eddie Hearn and Turki Al-Sheikh of Saudi Arabia kind of having his hand in the pot now in boxing, especially with DAZN and Eddie Hearn, you know, maybe he can make it work. It's a joint broadcast between ESPN and DAZN for Munguia Pacheco. I mean, because you got Pacheco's a young guy, Berlanga's a young guy, Munguia's a young guy. Those guys will likely fight each other. You know, Munguia got the Canelo sweepstakes first. I think out of those three, I think that's appropriate, right? I think Munguia deserved it out of those three. Him, Pacheco, Berlanga. And now Berlanga gets the sweepstakes. I mean, and then when, let's just say Berlanga loses, obviously he's the Canelo's the odds-on favorite heavily. Does Munguia fight Berlanga or fight Pacheco first in the future?
Munguia?
Yeah, I'm talking about Munguia.
I mean, if you were going to fight them both, I would go Berlanga first. I think he beats him. I think Berlanga's the weakest out of all of those three. And then you do Pacheco.
Yeah. I think Berlanga and Pacheco might fight first because they're under the same banner, DAZN Matchroom. I think Eddie Hearn will probably try to do that fight. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's so interesting. Like, you know, I get the criticism that Canelo gets, especially with the Benavidez fight, but he's been around at the world-class level. He won his first title, 2011, 2012?
That's great.
Right? Was it against Matthew Hatton, or was that his first world title, or was it not that fight?
Honestly, can't remember, but that's a long time. If it's been
well, it was a long time, and he's literally been through like multiple eras, kind of boxing. Like, you know, he has a point when he says, I fought everybody. There's always somebody new who they're gonna be like, oh, you're not gonna fight this guy. You're scared. Like he's like, no, I literally fought all of them, and he's true. Obviously, Benavidez is the guy right now. He's been the guy over the last couple of years. So I think that fight will happen eventually, but it's very interesting to look at because somebody like Pacheco and Berlanga. I mean, let's just say 5 years ago or something. I don't think any of us would have been like, oh yeah, he's gonna fight Edgar Berlanga in like 4 years or something, right? I don't think we would have said that. You know, I know Berlanga at that time was like on ESPN knocking guys out for Top Rank and stuff, but then he started upping his game, upping the opponents, and he wasn't knocking these guys out. It was a little bit difficult because you have to level up. But the fact that like guys like Berlanga and even Pacheco with his increased like chances can land some like a Canelo sweepstakes, that's pretty big, man. That's pretty big. Like this young in their career, like Canelo in the last, probably this last year or last several months, he's been the veteran for a while now, but he's now the guy that he was like 10 years ago. Because he was a young guy who was like a superstar, young guy who's talented, who was fighting the older veterans, right? Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, who else? Obviously, there's a lot. Floyd Mayweather, And now, obviously, Father Time goes by, and Canelo is the older one, the older grizzled vet. And now he's fought Munguia. He's going to fight Berlanga. And Pacheco might be by next September 2025. Right?
Yeah, you'd think so. They've got that passing of the torch, right? Era always happens.
No, yeah. Yeah. Father Time is undefeated, like we've always said. But quickly, what do you think about this fight? Pacheco versus Suleki. He's a tough opponent. He's just like Dervenchenko, comes to fight. So this should be a nice little test, right?
Yeah, it should be a good test. Suleki's been in there with, a lot of names that, we've recognized over the years. Demetrius Andrade, Gabe Rosado, Daniel Jacobs, Jack Colkai, Hugo Centeno Jr. So he's one of those people that's always good to have on the resume. He's also coming off the back of, 4 wins in a row. He won this year against a guy with an awesome name, Rowdy Legend Montgomery, who I believe is managed.
Rowdy Piper? Rowdy Piper?
Right. I think he's managed by Henry Ramirez, that Rowdy.
Oh, yeah? No way. He used to manage the Nightmare, Chris Areola.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think it's a good pick for Pacheco. Somebody with a resume, somebody with who's fought some names over the time. But I think Pacheco gets him out of there. I think Pacheco stops him round 8.
Let's see how Pacheco turns out, man. 21-0. But I think him, Munguia, Berlanga, Munguia Pacheco fighting would be really fun. I think it'd be a really fun fight.
Yeah, I think all of those ones would be like the Munguia.
Yeah, and they're all young enough too to like kind of fight each other for the next couple of years.
You'd hope that now Munguia, Berlanga have had the Canelo payday that they go, well, you know what? I've kind of reached the top in a sense because I've had that big payday. Now I can just go and fight people around me.
Yeah, I can see that
because they've already taken the loss.
Yeah.
So then they can face Pacheco, they can face Berlanga, they can face Munguia, they can all face each other because they've been paid, they've taken a loss, they're not protecting anything, and us as fans get to see those great fights.
Exactly. And also on the card, Arturo Popoca, almost sounds like straw in Spanish, 14-0-1, goes up against Jesus Valdez, 21-1 for the WBC Americas Super Bantamweight Championship. Check that out. WBC USA and then WBC Americas. That's all I have to say. And then also next Tuesday, weekday fight. Where else? The country of Japan, Kyoto, Japan, on ESPN. The Monster returns. Naoya Inoue, 27-0, puts up his undisputed super bantamweight titles against TJ Doheny, 26-4. What do you think about this fight?
You got to give it a round of applause for TJ Doheny for tactfully going to Japan, getting some wins over there, kind of making a name for himself and positioning himself for this fight against Inoue, which is going to be probably a good payday for him. And I imagine he would probably run off into retirement after this, because I think Inoue stops him pretty easily, probably 5 or 6 rounds. I think Inoue stops him. TJ Doheny lost to, Danny Roman many years ago, and, had some other losses in his career. And then, how he managed to turn his career around and get this is, good for him, good for his management and stuff like that, because this really should be Inoue against MJ, Akhman Mandelyov.
Yeah.
Because he's the mandatory, but they decided to do Doheny instead. And, hopefully just get this win out of the way, and then we can see the MJ fight, because I think that clash of styles will be brilliant to watch.
But if there's any fighter in the sport of boxing, especially the last several years or whatever, in addition to Canelo, who's literally fought, like, he'll fight anybody, and he's fought the who's who of the divisions, it's Inoue, right? I mean, yeah. Obviously the publicity in the United States hasn't been as big because he's Japanese, and Japan has, like, they love him. He's a superstar over there, and he makes great money over there. I think there's like an Amazon Prime Video deal that they have. So it's on there over there in Japan. But going back to the beating the dead horse here, pound for pound, why isn't Inoue look like? I don't understand, to me, why there's a dispute of who is number one. I know Crawford won a title at 154 in Los Angeles this year. And, I guess it's like, people, whatever recent event happens, like, that's the most recent one in their minds. They're like, oh, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy. I mean, I understand that. But Inoue has literally he's become undisputed in multiple divisions, and he's literally fought all the killers in and around his divisions. And he started at 112?
Yeah, something like that.
And now he's at 122?
Yeah.
And he's probably going to go to 126 after this fight? Maybe? I mean, I just don't. If you try to be as impartial as you can, and they exclude him fighting in Japan, his profile isn't as high in the United States and all that, I understand that. But if you try to exclude that and just try to look at the resume, the type of opponents they fought, the championships, I mean, I know Crawford's he's becoming disputed at 140, 147. Now he's won a title at 154. But I don't know. I don't see how people can't just say, like, Inoue, even after Crawford just won this title at 154 in Los Angeles, like, Inoue is still the guy at number one. And I know it's like, imaginary lists, and, people just have fun with them, but that's just, to me, man. Like, when Mayweather was literally the last guy that, like, he was legit number one pound for pound for, like, pretty much since he beat De La Hoya, or at least when he came back and fought, like, Marquez, Ricky Hatton, all that stuff. There was never really a dispute or an argument, I would say, that Mayweather wasn't number one. Am I wrong? Am I looking at this wrong? Is Crawford number one in your eyes? What do you think? I think it's Inoue still, man.
I think you're right. It's that recency bias, right, is the word that they always use.
That's it.
Because he's fought most recently, like, he kind of, like, goes to the top of the pile because it's kind of like what we've just remembered. And then also, the lighter weights aren't as popular, people like that. Like, that's why you always get, like, from 147 up to heavyweight tend to be the more popular divisions. And, people like Canelo and Crawford are more known to, like, the casual fan, where, people like Chocolatito and Inoue, they're kind of like the underground, like indie type of fans, I guess. The cult following people kind of always favor those. So yeah, it's like you say, it's depending on who you speak to, on what day of the week. Even us, you could ask me on a Saturday, who's my pound for pound. Ask me again, a week later, and I'm completely fucking different because we've seen some other fights. So it's just a fantasy list essentially. But yeah, you mean anyway, it's got to be what, top 3 with people like Crawford and Usyk and those guys that are pretty much doing pound for pound in real life, moving up and down divisions.
I'm telling you, man, I'm waiting for Inoue to come fight in LA. I'm telling you, I went to the Los Angeles Dodger game this past weekend, and I hadn't been there this season's first game. And their parking lot signs now have Japanese writing. It says it's in English, but it's also in Japanese. And it's because of Shohei Ohtani. And not even him. Obviously, he's the star. But there's another pitcher that they got from Japan, that they signed from Japan, named Yamamoto, who was also, like their best pitcher in Japan, and he started over here. So they have these 2 Japanese stars, with Shohei Ohtani being like the superstar. And the stadium, the Dodgers, now at the parking lot, like there's a lot of stuff in Japanese because there's so many Japanese fans who want to come see these players. I mean, a majority of them want to see Shohei Ohtani. I'm telling you, man, you bring Inoue to LA, and if you're able to strike some type of partnership or get the Dodgers to kind of publicize him, get him to throw out the first pitch, or get Ohtani and Yamamoto to go to his fight, or just something to just tap into that market and kind of put all like those powers together. I'm telling you, man, that's huge. And Southern California and LA already have a significant population of Japanese people. And there's people who travel from Japan to Dodger Stadium to watch the Dodgers just to see Shohei Ohtani. I saw a couple people, like, they were asking for directions, and I was trying to understand them, but they were from Japan. I'm telling you, man, I know he makes a lot of money in Japan, but that would be an event out here in LA because of the Los Angeles Dodgers and Shohei Ohtani. So I hope they're exploring that. I know it's probably difficult to pull off, but I hope it works out. Also on the card, Yoshiki Takai. I think I said that right. 9-0 goes up against Daigo Higa, 21-2-1 for the WBO Bantamweight Championship of the World. News and notes section of this week's episode of the Last Round podcast. Nick Ball and Ronny Rios, friends of the show. I thought he retired. I guess he's back now. Are reportedly in the process of finalizing a deal for a WBA Featherweight Championship fight on October 5th in Liverpool, England, according to ESPN. This is Ball's first 126-pound title defense, and it will be a homecoming. He's from Liverpool, so obviously fighting in Liverpool. Going to have a lot of family and friends there. Ball last scored a split decision victory over Raymond Ford in June in Saudi Arabia to win the title. It was a thrilling fight, very exciting fight. The win followed Nick Ball's first title challenge, a split decision draw with Ray Vargas in March of this year, also in Saudi Arabia, where he floored Vargas twice in that belt. And Vargas is obviously a big guy. We were talking about Sebastian Fundora earlier. Vargas is a big guy too. So these big guys just in these lower weight classes, I don't even know how they do it, man. I don't know how they do it. And we're big guys, and I don't think me and you could ever think about getting down to that weight. So that's insane. That is insane. But shout out to Ronny Rios, man. Obviously him and his brother Alexis Rocha, Lex. They're from the Santa Ana, California, Orange County area here in Southern California. I think Ronny Rios, I don't know if he's ever been, was he officially retired or was it just kind of without saying? Do we know?
No, it was official.
It was official,
retired,
right?
Came back, had a couple of fights on like Pro Box TV, and then somehow, some way, magically managed to get himself this title shot over in the UK. Good.
Well,
for him.
I I think that's what probably pushed him to take it, right? He's like, it's a world title shot? Right? I mean, I would think, right?
Unbelievable to come back, and obviously still had some name recognition left. Gets to go over, and
what a story that would be if he wins, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's they just did the press conference this week, so we know it's official. Our friend of the show, Chris Glover, was there representing Ronny Rios at the table, answering questions and all that type of stuff. So we'll have to try and get him on before the fight just to kind of talk about it, I guess.
We keep saying that we want to go to their gym over there in Santa Ana, to watch them like train and spar. And, Lex has told us to hey, just let us know when you want to come by. I think we should try, man. October 5th. October 5th. It's not, I think that's enough time away where maybe we can make it out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got Jorge Chavez out there. Obviously, Lex, Ronnie. So it's turned into a busy gym.
So hopefully we can make it. We can try to make that work before they travel to England. Get a peek into their training lifestyle over there. And then also we touched on this a couple times already. Canelo and Berlanga obviously fighting in mid-September. They had their kickoff press conferences a couple weeks ago in New York and LA. So we'll see how that performs in a couple weeks. And then also your favorite of mine, former world champion Floyd Money Mayweather went the distance this past weekend, I believe, against John Gotti III in an exhibition fight on this past Saturday night in the city of Mexico City, Mexico. Mayweather's 47 years old, close to 50, creeping up on 50. He had I believe. He fought Gotti in an 8-round fight with no judges in Arena Ciudad de Mexico. It was a rematch of a fight that ended in a massive brawl in Florida last June, if you remember that. That was insane. So, I mean, Mayweather's still going out there, and getting his money. It's obviously working for him. You got to give it to him, too, man. Like, he still looks really good in terms of aging and all that.
Yeah.
He still looks really good. I mean, it obviously helps that he doesn't, like, drink and all that stuff. Like, but you would think, too, like, I've met people who say, like, they're so surprised that he doesn't drink when I tell them. Because, he's always been about the money lifestyle ever since he hit that persona. And they're like, no, he's not. He's always partying. He's always at clubs. I was like, well, he doesn't drink. I mean, discipline. He's been disciplined. So we will see. And then also Shakur Stevenson will defend his WBC lightweight title against Joe Cordina on October 12th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Turki Al-Sheikh, the chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, announced last week. The fight will serve as a co-feature to the long-awaited Artur Beterbiev Dmitry Bivol undisputed light heavyweight championship fight. Hey, man, I like that. That's a cool little 1-2 combo right there, right? And then you got Bivol and Beterbiev finally going together. So, see, I don't know. I don't think Cordina. It's a fun fight, but I think Stevenson's talent is just too much for Cordina, right?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Obviously, Cordina stepping up. Shakur Stevenson is just another level, isn't he? His fights aren't always the best to watch, but he gets the wins, and that's all that matters to him, essentially. And I could see Shakur probably moving up another weight class. So I'm sure on fight night he's going to be probably 1 or 2 weight classes heavier than Joe Cordina. But still a good fight. But I think Shakur comes out the winner on the night.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, as we get closer, we will dive a little bit more into it. But once again, guys, we appreciate you guys listening to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. We apologize for the 2-week hiatus. Like as I mentioned, there were some scheduling conflicts in our schedules. So unfortunately, we could not provide you any content or episodes the last 2 weeks, but we are back this week, diving into your boxing news of the week and looking into the future. Then, like I mentioned earlier, don't forget we are on YouTube now, youtube.com/@the-last-round-boxing podcast. So check us out on there. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Do it. So once again, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast. Podcast.